my J-Hen travel crew. This is your boy J-Hen, and today I'm just coming to you with some frequently asked questions and answers about the new CDC update that's going to be taking place on January 26th for all passengers coming into the United States of America. First off, I just want to say, things can change on a daily basis. So you always want to make sure that you're checking with your travel advisor, travel agent, travel suppliers who you're booking with, as well as the CDC's website, just to make sure that nothing has changed since this video has been posted. But really quick, we just want to get in to see, so what is actually going to be the change that's going to take place on the 26th of this month of January of 2021. So it says here, on January 12th of 2021, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, better known as the CDC, expanded the requirement for a negative COVID-19 test to all air passengers entering the United States. This requirement will go into effect on January 26th of 2021. The first question here, it says, does this requirement apply to U.S. citizens? This order applies to all air passengers traveling into the United States, including U.S. citizens and legal permanent residents. So that's very important to think about. You could be thinking, I'm leaving the United States to go on a vacation or a trip. How would this affect me when I'm coming back home? It's going to affect you because it affects anybody that is coming into the United States via plane. Okay, the next question, it says, does this policy apply to U.S. citizens returning to U.S. from U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico? It says no. The CDC order defines a foreign country as anywhere that is not a state, territory, or possession of the United States. Locations like Puerto Rico and the USVI or U.S. Virgin Islands are considered within the United States according to the CDC's definition. So that's very important. I know a lot of people now are booking trips to Puerto Rico and St. Thomas and places like that to avoid having to get a passport or to avoid having to deal with this new policy that's taking place. It's the next question. Does this order apply to all flights or just commercial flights? This order applies to all flights, including private flights and general aviation aircrafts, charter flights. Passengers traveling by air into the United States are required to have proof of testing regardless of the flight type. The next question, it says, who is checking to make sure that people have a negative test or documentation of recovery before they board a plane to the United States? And it says, the airline will confirm a COVID-19 negative test results or documentation of recovery for all passengers before boarding. So it can be done multiple ways. It can be done, if you're checking in at the counter, when you're checking your bags or getting your tickets printed out, or it can be done once you make it through security and right before you're about to board the plane. They can start asking for the documentation there, making those checks, as well as they said in some instances, once you land in the United States, you may be asked to provide that documentation again in some instances. So the next question, it says, what does testing involve and what documents do I need? According to the CDC, air passengers entering the United States will be required to present documentation of a negative COVID-19 viral test called a qualifying test conducted within the 3 days before their flight to the United States departs. It says documentation should be for a viral test as approved or authorized by the relevant national authority. Test results must state one of the following. It must state negative or SARS-CoV-2 RNA not detected or SARS-CoV-2 antigen not detected or COVID-19 not detected. Invalid will not be accepted. So if you have some paperwork and it says the test was invalid, that will not be accepted. So make sure you're reading your documentations of once you do have a test if you're out of the country. It says documentation may be paper or an electronic copy and must include the name and contact information for the laboratory that conducted the test, or it must have the healthcare provider's name on the document. It says test results may be required to be shown again upon landing. It says alternatively, passengers may provide documentation of having recovered from COVID-19 with documentation of test results conducted during the 3 months preceding the flight's departure from a foreign country. It goes on to say test results must state one of the following. They must state positive, or it must state SARS-CoV-2 RNA detected, or SARS-CoV-2 antigen detected, or COVID-19 detected. And again, invalid will not be accepted. So if you have some paperwork and it says invalid, that will not be accepted. It says additionally, a letter from a licensed health professional stating that the passenger has been cleared for travel, which is called a documentation of recovery, would also need to be accompanied with that testing. So in an instance that you've had COVID-19 within that 3-month time frame, like when your flight is coming up, maybe before you leave the United States, it'll be a good idea to get that those test results with you to show that you were positive, as well as to get that letter from your doctor to say that you are clear for travel. So that way, when you try to come back in the country, you'll already have this the documentation that you need. Let's see, what is the next test? Oh, the next thing too, it's important to note, it says finally all airline passengers will be required to present a simple CDC attestation form to the airline for collection prior to boarding. And that form can be found on the CDC's website, as well as a lot of airlines and travel providers are putting links to that form right on their website as well. So that's important to know. When you're returning to the United States, you will have to have that form completed as well. So before you leave that resort or that hotel or that villa or that relative's house you're staying at, it would be good to print that form off and have it filled out, before you get to the airport. Okay, it says, where can I get tested in destination and what is the cost? So that's something that there's a lot of different resorts that are starting to put things into place to help with this process. I'm going to be making another video talking about some of the all-inclusive resorts that are offering testing right on site. But right here it says AM Resorts policy. It says they'll be doing testing in the Zoltry Wellness and Spa Resorts and Secrets, Breathless, Dreams, Now, and Sunscape Resorts and Spas. It says if a guest receives a positive test while on property that prevents departure, the cost of quarantine at the property will be covered for up to 14 days. It says extended stay due to quarantine includes the guest plus one travel companion sharing the same room. It says this program is valid for travel through March 31st of 2021. Again, that's for AM Resorts. Again, AM Resorts, so you may still want to check as the months go by and days go by to see what changes. It says, when do I need to get a test to travel to the U.S. and what kind of test do I need? This answer here is a little lengthy. It says, get tested no more than 3 days before your flight to the U.S. departs. It says, make sure to be tested with a viral test. It says NAAT or an antigen test to determine if you are currently infected with COVID-19. It says test documentation must also include the name and contact information for the laboratory or healthcare personnel who performed the test, which we just talked about earlier. It says also make sure that you receive your results before your flight departs and have documentation of your results to show to the airline. Alternatively, passengers may provide documentation of having the COVID-19 with documentation of test results during the 3 months preceding the flight's departure from a foreign country, as well as with that letter from your healthcare provider saying that you're fine to travel. The next question, it says, if I have a COVID-19 vaccine, do I still need a negative COVID-19 test or documentation of recovery from COVID-19? At this time, it says yes, all air passengers traveling to the United States, regardless of vaccination status, are required to provide a negative COVID-19 test result or documentation of recovery. The next question, what if I test positive? It says guests who test positive will need to quarantine in country and coordinate with resorts to determine options for quarantine. Or, it depends on where you're staying in the country that you're coming from, or if that's your home country that you're coming from and coming to the United States to visit. It says, what is the quarantine time frame for someone that tests positive? It says if you are quarantined in country, the health policies of that country will determine the quarantine time frame. For reference, according to the CDC, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared and after 24 hours with no fever, the use of fever-reducing medications, loss of taste and smell may persist for weeks or months after recovery and need not delay the end of isolation. So they're saying, you can isolate for 10 days, and as long as you don't have any fever within that time frame or you haven't had to take any fever-reducing medication, then you should be fine. And they say that loss of taste and smell can last for weeks, but it will be based on the country that you're in, what their quarantine time is. This is what the United States says the CDC, their time frame is. It says, what documentation is sufficient for customers who have tested positive within the last 3 months in order to forego the test requirements? And we already listed the answer to this. If you want to know the answer to this question, you just got to rewind the video and see what I just said already. Okay, this is probably a very important question for those that are going to be taking short trips. It says, for stays under 72 hours, can the COVID test be administered in the U.S. prior to departure to international destinations? There is no direction from the CDC that says the country from which you are traveling into the United States must be the country which the test must be administered. The requirement is that documentation of a negative test result within the past 3 days be presented for entry into the United States. So at this time, there's no direction. So if you have a stay that's under 72 hours and you've already got a negative test result from the United States, and your time frame out of the States will be less than those 3 days, at this time you should be good. But you still want to always check to see if there's been any updates. The next question says, can a customer purchase a COVID-19 test in the United States and take it to their destination for a doctor to administer and certify there? According to the CDC, it's saying it is not recommended. It would be necessary to ensure that the type of test purchased meets the CDC requirements and that the in-country healthcare administrators accept the test and have the lab facilities to process the test. The next question, it says you can test positive for COVID-19 for up to 3 months after getting the virus. Can you get a waiver if you are not contagious? So again, it just says here the CDC requirements do not address a waiver for COVID-19 positive individuals without symptoms or who are not contagious. The requirements are for documentation of a negative test taken in the past 3 days or a positive test taken in the past 3 months, coupled with a letter from a licensed healthcare professional stating that the passenger has been cleared for travel, called a documentation of recovery. It said, the next question, is it confirmed that a negative test is mandatory, or does the minimum quarantine meet the requirement as well, and for how many days? At this time, a negative test is mandatory. Minimum quarantine does not excuse the requirement for a test. The next question, it says, what type of test results are valid? Would antigen be okay? For entry into the United States, the CDC requires a negative viral test for current infection. Canada requires a negative COVID-19 test, which is called a PCR, or it says loop or a lamp test. I'll just go with the abbreviation. It's or a lamp test. And it says, please check for more information and ongoing updates on the CDC's website. It says, if you test positive in destination and have met the in-country quarantine requirements, what documentation do you need to return to the United States? The CDC requirements for re-entry into the United States are for documentation of a negative test taken in the past 3 days or a positive test in the past 3 months, coupled with that letter from a licensed healthcare professional stating the passenger has been cleared for travel, called documentation of recovery. So some of these questions have, the same answer. So it says, is January 26, 2021 the date for guests returning or the date for departing the USA? In other words, if I depart January 20th, but arrive back home January 26th, am I required to test in destination 3 days to January 26th? And the answer that they have, it says yes. According to the CDC, the requirements go into effect for travelers entering the United States on January 26th of 2021. Sometimes, people ask the same questions over and over and, could have the same answer, Let's see. I think we just talked about it says, what is a verifiable test result? A verifiable test result must be in the form of a written documentation, paper or electronic copy of a laboratory test result. Testing must be performed using a viral test, and negative results must be provided to the airline prior to boarding. The test result documentation must meet the CDC's guidelines in order to be admitted into the United States or aboard that plane traveling to the United States. The next question is, it says, if I tested negative before my return flight to the United States, do I need to get another test when I enter the United States? So right now it says the CDC recommends that travelers get tested 3 to 5 days after travel and stay home or otherwise self-quarantine for 7 days after travel. Okay, the next question here, it seems like this one should be a question that people would know the answer to, but it says, what happens if I don't take a test and want to enter the United States? I mean, they got a paragraph wrote here, but it's simple. If a passenger chooses not to provide a test result or documentation of recovery, the airline must deny the passenger from boarding. All right, this says, if I have one or more connecting flights to the U.S., does the 3-day period apply to the first flight or the last one? So it says, if you are arriving on a direct flight to the U.S., your test must be done within the 3 days before your flight to the U.S. departs. If you are arriving to the U.S. via one or more connecting flights, your test must be done in the 3 days before the first flight in your itinerary, but only if the connecting flights were booked as a single passenger record with a final destination in the U.S. and each flight is no longer than 24 hours long, or each connecting flight is no longer than 24 hours long. It says if your connecting flight to the U.S. was booked separately or a flight in your itinerary lasts longer than 24 hours, you will need to get tested within the 3 days before your flight that arrives in the United States. Hopefully that one wasn't too confusing, you guys. It says, if I am connecting through the United States to another country, do I still need to get tested? Yes, any flights entering the United States, even for a connection, requires testing before departure. Individuals are responsible for confirming correct travel information and should always refer to the CDC's website at www.cdc.gov. So that's just a few question and answers that I have right there. Again, I'm going to do another video with some of the things that some of the like all-inclusive resorts are doing to help to make sure everyone stays safe and to help to make sure that there's a smooth process of testing taking place right on their properties. So be on the lookout for that video. If this is your first time checking out my YouTube channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Hit that bell. That way, as I'm giving you guys like trending travel news, travel tips, tours and sharing vlogs and things like that, you'll always be in the know. If you guys have any more questions regarding this new travel update policy for the United States that the CDC is recommending and putting in place, leave me a question down below and I'll see if I can find an answer for you. But what do you guys think about this? What are your thoughts about this new travel update with getting into the United States? Let me know down in the comments below, and hope you guys are staying safe and healthy, and Happy New Year. And until next time, peace.